From the book, Understanding the Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style by Mindy. From the book, Understanding the Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style by Mindy Rivers. Independence as Identity. This section is about independence as identity and why it can feel so central for someone with a dismissive avoidant attachment style. Independence is often spoken about as a healthy adult trait, and it can be. It can mean you can take care of yourself, make choices, and handle life with competence. For dismissive avoidant people, independence often goes beyond a trait. It becomes a definition of self, a kind of emotional backbone. It is not only what you do, it is who you believe you are. That is why threats to independence can feel so intense, and why intimacy can sometimes feel like a threat even when you want love. Independence becomes identity when it is tied to safety. Many dismissive avoidant people learned early that relying on others did not bring comfort. They may have learned that emotions were not welcomed. They may have learned that asking for help led to disappointment, criticism, or shame. In that world, self-reliance was not just useful, it was necessary. The child learned to soothe themselves, solve their own problems, and keep their inner world private. Over time, these behaviors became a self-concept. The person became the one who does not need much, the one who can handle it, the one who stays steady. This identity can be reinforced by praise. Many independent children are admired. Adults call them mature. Teachers call them responsible. Friends call them strong. The child learns that independence brings approval. They may feel proud of being capable, and that pride is real. The problem comes when independence is praised so much that the child learns vulnerability is unacceptable. The person may grow into an adult who cannot receive care without discomfort, because care threatens the identity that has protected them. One common situation looks like this. A dismissive avoidant adult is going through a hard time, and someone offers help. The offer is kind, but it triggers discomfort. The person may say no quickly. They might insist they have it handled. They might feel irritated by the offer, as if the offer implies they are weak. The person might not recognize that irritation as fear. Underneath the fear is that accepting help changes the relationship. It creates dependence, and dependence threatens identity. Saying no restores a feeling of self-control. Independence as identity also shapes how dismissive avoidants approach relationships. They often want love that does not feel like loss of self. They may value their routines, their privacy, and their freedom. They may feel most comfortable with partners who are also independent. They may also feel drawn to partners who admire their strength. In the early stage of a relationship, independence can feel compatible with romance, because romance does not yet require deep interdependence. As the relationship grows, the partner's needs and expectations can feel like a pull on the avoidant person's identity. The avoidant person may then feel trapped or crowded, even if the partner is not trying to control them. This often shows up when commitment deepens. For example, moving in together, talking about the future, or discussing shared plans can bring up a wave of discomfort. The dismissive avoidant person might start focusing on what they will lose. They may worry about losing time alone. They may worry about being expected to talk more, share more, or change their habits. They may interpret those changes as a loss of freedom. The partner may see these discussions as natural steps toward closeness. The avoidant person may experience them as a threat to autonomy because autonomy is tied to safety. Independence as identity can also lead to a particular relationship with emotions. Many dismissive avoidants feel that emotions are something you handle privately. They may believe that talking about emotions is unnecessary. They may also believe that leaning on someone emotionally is burdensome. These beliefs protect the identity of independence. If you never lean, you never have to risk being disappointed. If you never ask, you never have to risk being judged. The person may then become skilled at functioning through pain while being cut off from comfort. The independence looks strong, and it can also be lonely. One common situation looks like this in conflict. A partner says they need reassurance, and the dismissive, avoidant person feels pressure. They might think, why can you not handle your feelings? Because their own identity is built around handling feelings alone. They might feel resentment at being asked for emotional presence. The partner feels hurt. The avoidant person feels misunderstood. Underneath, the partner is asking for connection. The avoidant person is defending independence. They are not defending independence because they do not love. They are defending it because it feels like their life raft. Independence as identity also shapes the way a dismissive avoidant person experiences being needed. Being needed can feel flattering at first because it confirms value. Over time, being needed can feel suffocating. The avoidant person may feel responsible for their partner's emotional state. Even if the partner is not asking for constant reassurance, the avoidant person may interpret emotional expression as a demand. They may feel that if they engage, it will never end. This can lead to withdrawal. Withdrawal restores independence, and independence restores safety. It can also shape how the avoidant person thinks about love. Many dismissive avoidants have a belief that love should be effortless, or that needing is a sign the relationship is not right. This belief often protects identity. If needing means weakness, then a relationship that asks for emotional engagement can feel like a sign of failure. The avoidant person may then tell themselves they should leave. They might chase a fantasy of a relationship that feels easy and low demand. In reality, all close relationships involve needs and repairs. Avoidance can make this reality feel like a problem rather than a normal part of love. Another cost of independence as identity is that it can create distance even when the person wants closeness. Many dismissive avoidants crave connection, but they want it without losing themselves. If the only way they know to keep themselves is to stay distant, they may choose distance even when it hurts. They may not share their inner world. They may not ask for comfort. They may keep partners at the edge of their life rather than at the center. Partners may feel shut out. The avoidant person may feel misunderstood. Underneath, the avoidant person is trying to love without surrendering the identity that keeps them safe. Healing does not require giving up independence. Independence can remain a strength. The goal is to separate independence from defense. You can be independent and still be connected. You can rely on yourself and also allow yourself to rely on others sometimes. The healthiest relationships are not about one person needing nothing. They are about two people choosing each other while still respecting individuality. For dismissive avoidant people, this often means learning that interdependence is not the same as being trapped. Interdependence is the ability to give and receive support in a way that preserves dignity for both people. One common situation looks like this in growth. A dismissive avoidant person says, "I need some time alone, and I also want to be close to you." This kind of statement honors independence and intimacy at the same time. It shows that alone time is not rejection. It is self-care. It also shows that love is still present. When partners can hear and respect this, the relationship becomes safer for the avoidant person. When the avoidant person can speak this way, they feel less trapped, which makes closeness easier. Independence as identity often formed for a good reason. It helped you survive in an environment where emotional support was limited or uncomfortable. It helped you build competence, dignity, and self-respect. The quiet cost is that it can make love feel dangerous, because love requires some level of emotional reliance. This book is here to help you keep your strength while also expanding your capacity for closeness. When independence becomes a choice rather than a shield, it becomes healthier. You can still be yourself, and you can also be held. You can still be capable, and you can also be tender. That combination is not weakness. It is freedom. Discomfort with intimacy. This section is about discomfort with intimacy and why intimacy can feel unsettling for someone with a dismissive avoidant attachment style. Many people assume intimacy is always pleasurable if you love the person you are with. For dismissive avoidants, intimacy can be both pleasurable and uncomfortable. They may enjoy closeness in one moment and feel the urge to pull away in the next. They may crave connection and still feel tense when connection becomes emotionally deep. This discomfort is not proof that they are cold or incapable of love. It is often a sign that intimacy is touching old lessons about safety, control, and need. Intimacy is more than spending time together. It is the experience of being emotionally known and emotionally affected by another person. It involves letting someone see you when you are not polished. It involves admitting what you want, what you fear, what you regret, and what you long for. It involves allowing someone's opinion to matter. That is why intimacy can feel risky. When someone matters, they have the power to hurt you, not necessarily because they will, but because they could. For dismissive avoidance, that possibility can feel too close to the surface. Discomfort with intimacy often begins in childhood. If you grew up in an environment where emotions were not welcomed, being emotionally seen may not have felt safe. You may have learned that showing feelings led to dismissal or criticism. You may have learned that needing led to disappointment. You may have learned that closeness came with pressure. These lessons can create a deep association between intimacy and danger. The danger might be shame. It might be obligation. It might be loss of control. Whatever the specific fear, the body learns that the safest response to intimacy is to keep some distance. One common situation looks like this. A relationship begins and feels exciting and easy. The dismissive avoidant person is attentive and present because the closeness is light and chosen. As time passes, the partner begins to want deeper emotional engagement. They want to talk about the relationship, about feelings, about the future. The avoidant person begins to feel uneasy. They may feel that something is changing, even if nothing is wrong. Their partner may interpret the unease as loss of interest. The avoidant person may interpret it as a sign the relationship is becoming too much. Underneath, intimacy is moving into a zone that activates old fears. Discomfort with intimacy often shows up as a need to regulate distance. Dismissive avoidants may feel best when they can choose when closeness happens. They might enjoy intimacy when they initiate it, when the pace feels calm, and when there is plenty of space around it. When intimacy is initiated by the partner, especially in an emotional way, the avoidant person may feel pressured. Pressure can make intimacy feel like an obligation rather than a gift. The avoidant person then pulls back to restore a sense of choice. Their partner may feel rejected. The avoidant person may feel relief. The pattern is about safety, not about lack of love. Intimacy can also feel uncomfortable because it brings up the fear of being needed. Many dismissive avoidants associate need with heaviness. They may have learned early that emotional needs are burdensome, either because caregivers were overwhelmed or because needs were met with irritation. In adult relationships, a partner's needs can activate the fear that the avoidant person will be responsible for someone else's emotional stability. Even if the partner is not asking for that, the avoidant person may feel it anyway. Intimacy then feels like a doorway into responsibility, and responsibility feels like a trap. The avoidant person withdraws to avoid feeling trapped. One common situation looks like this. A partner says, "I miss you," and the dismissive avoidant person feels tension. The words are loving, but they can sound like a request for more contact, more reassurance, more closeness. The avoidant person may respond with a short message, or they may take longer to reply, or they may change the subject. The partner feels hurt. The avoidant person feels calmer. Underneath, intimacy was offered, and intimacy activated a fear of obligation. The avoidant person uses distance to soothe the fear. Discomfort with intimacy can also be linked to a fear of being seen as inadequate. If you have built your identity around competence and control, intimacy can reveal the parts of you that feel messy. It can reveal insecurity, confusion, and need. Many dismissive avoidants fear that if they are truly seen, their partner will judge them or lose respect. They may feel safer being admired from a distance than being known up close. This can lead to relationships where they are pleasant and supportive, yet emotionally hard to reach. They keep the parts that feel vulnerable behind a wall. Intimacy also requires emotional communication, and many dismissive avoidants were not taught that language. If you grew up in a home where feelings were not discussed, you may not have practiced naming what you feel. When your partner asks you to share, you may feel blank. You may feel pressured. You may become irritated because the request feels impossible. The partner may interpret the blankness as refusal. The avoidant person may experience it as confusion. This mismatch can create conflict around intimacy. The issue is not that the avoidant person has no inner world. The issue is that they may not know how to bring it into words and connection. One common situation looks like this. A partner asks, "How did that make you feel?" And the dismissive avoidant person responds with facts, not feelings. They describe what happened, what they did, and what they plan to do. The partner wants emotional connection and feels disappointed. The avoidant person feels they answered the question and feels frustrated. Underneath, facts feel safer than feelings. Facts do not expose the heart. Intimacy asks for the heart, and the heart has been guarded for a long time. Discomfort with intimacy often shows up after closeness, not only during it. Many dismissive avoidants experience a kind of emotional hangover. They might have a tender conversation and feel close, then later feel restless or irritable. They might feel the urge to be alone. They might feel the urge to reassert independence. This can confuse partners who believe closeness should lead to more closeness. For the avoidant person, the closeness may have activated longing, and longing may feel dangerous. Distance quiets longing. The cost is that it also quiets the relationship. It is important to recognize that discomfort with intimacy is not the same as not wanting intimacy. Many dismissive avoidants want intimacy in a way that respects their nervous system. They often do better with intimacy that is steady, calm, and paced. They may struggle with intimacy that is intense, urgent, or emotionally demanding. This does not mean the partner is wrong for having needs. It means the couple may need to learn how to create closeness in a way that feels safe for both people. When intimacy is offered as an invitation rather than a demand, avoidant people often find it easier to stay present. Healing involves building tolerance for intimacy in small steps. You do not have to force yourself to share everything. You can practice sharing one small truth. You can practice staying present for a few more minutes. You can practice receiving care without deflecting. You can practice naming your need for space without disappearing. These small practices create new experiences that teach the body intimacy can be survivable. Over time, intimacy can feel less like threat and more like comfort. One common situation looks like this in growth. A dismissive, avoidant person notices the urge to withdraw when the partner wants to talk. Instead of shutting down, they say, "I want to talk, and I am feeling overwhelmed. Can we slow down?" This is intimacy. It is honest and connected, and it also protects the person's limits. The partner feels less rejected. The avoidant person feels less trapped. This kind of communication builds a bridge between independence and closeness. Discomfort with intimacy is a core trait of dismissive avoidant attachment because intimacy touches the very places that were not held safely early in life. It asks for vulnerability, dependency, and emotional presence. Those things can trigger fear, shame, and a desire for control. Understanding this discomfort with compassion helps you see that your reaction is not random and not a sign of being unloving. It is a protective response. With practice, patience, and safe experiences, intimacy can become less threatening. You can learn that being close does not require losing yourself, and that vulnerability can be met with respect. When that learning takes root, intimacy becomes not a trap, but a home you can enter without bracing. Difficulty expressing feelings. This section is about difficulty expressing feelings and why it is so common for someone with a dismissive avoidant attachment style. Many dismissive avoidant people are not trying to be secretive or cold. They often care deeply. The problem is that expressing feelings can feel unsafe, confusing, or pointless, depending on what the person learned early in life. When your relationship with feelings has been shaped by dismissal, criticism, or emotional silence, words can be hard to find. You may feel like you do not have the right language. You may feel like the moment you speak, you will be judged. You may also feel that talking will make things worse rather than better. Understanding this difficulty can help you treat it as a pattern that can change, not as a permanent limitation. Difficulty expressing feelings often starts with not being met emotionally in childhood. Children learn emotional language through experience. They learn what sadness is when someone names it and comforts it. They learn what fear is when someone notices it and reassures it. They learn what anger is when someone helps them calm down and repair. If those interactions do not happen, feelings remain vague. They might exist as tension, restlessness, or discomfort rather than as clear emotions with names. The child learns to move through life without talking about inner experience because inner experience is not part of how the family connects. When feelings are not named or welcomed, children often become focused on behavior. They learn what is acceptable to do, not what is acceptable to feel. They learn to manage appearance. They learn to be polite, perform well, and stay out of trouble. As adults, they can be excellent at describing events and decisions while struggling to describe what is happening inside. They might say they are tired, stressed, or annoyed because those words feel safer. They might struggle to say they are hurt, lonely, or afraid because those words feel too exposing. This is not a lack of depth. It is a lack of practice. One common situation looks like this. A partner asks, "What are you feeling?" And the dismissive avoidant person goes blank. The partner may believe the blankness is refusal. The avoidant person may truly not know. They might feel pressure to produce an answer quickly, and pressure makes it harder to access feelings. They might respond with logic instead. They might say what they think about the situation rather than what they feel. The partner may feel unseen. The avoidant person may feel frustrated because they are being asked to do something that feels impossible in the moment. Difficulty expressing feelings can also be caused by shame. If you were shamed for emotions as a child, you may still carry a belief that feelings are embarrassing. You may have learned that crying is weak, that fear is childish, or that need is burdensome. As an adult, the moment you try to speak a feeling, shame can rise and tighten your throat. You might feel exposed, you might feel awkward, you might feel as if you are doing something wrong. In that moment, it is easier to stop talking. Silence protects you from shame. This often shows up most strongly in romantic relationships because romance demands emotional sharing. Friends and coworkers may not ask for deep vulnerability, but partners usually do. A partner might want to know what you feel about the relationship, about the future, or about a conflict. The dismissive, avoidant person may feel cornered. They may worry that saying the wrong thing will start a bigger problem. They may fear that feelings will create expectations they cannot meet. They may then choose silence because silence feels safer than vulnerability. Another reason feelings are hard to express is that many dismissive avoidants learned to disconnect from feelings in order to function. If you grew up without comfort, you may have learned to push feelings down and keep moving. That skill can help you succeed. It can also make feelings less accessible. If you have spent years minimizing your own emotions, you might not know what you feel until it becomes intense. Then, when the feeling finally breaks through, it may feel overwhelming. Overwhelm makes language harder. The person may then shut down or withdraw, and the partner may experience them as emotionally absent. One common situation looks like this. A dismissive, avoidant person seems fine for weeks, then suddenly becomes irritable or distant. The partner asks what is wrong. The avoidant person says nothing is wrong, and they might believe it. Underneath, there may be accumulated hurt, stress, or resentment that was never expressed. Because it was never expressed, it was never processed. It builds quietly and then shows up as distance. This is one way difficulty expressing. Feelings can damage relationships, not because the person is unloving, but because unspoken feelings create invisible barriers. Difficulty expressing feelings is also connected to fear of conflict. In many dismissive, avoidant histories, emotional conversations led to criticism or escalation. If you learn that talking about feelings creates fights, you may avoid talking. You might believe it is better to keep things calm. You might prefer to let things go. In some cases, letting go is healthy. In other cases, it is a form of self-abandonment. You might swallow your hurt and then feel distant later. The relationship stays calm on the surface, but the emotional connection weakens. Another challenge is that dismissive avoidants often think in terms of problems and solutions. When a partner shares a feeling, the avoidant person may look for the fix. This can make the avoidant person sound dismissive, because they might say, "Just do this," or "It will be fine." The partner may want empathy, not solutions. The avoidant person may feel confused because offering solutions is how they show care. Underneath, feelings without fixes can feel uncomfortable for the avoidant person. If you cannot solve a feeling, you may feel helpless, and helplessness can trigger shame. It can feel safer to stay silent than to sit in helplessness. One common situation looks like this. A partner cries, and the dismissive avoidant person freezes. They do not know what to say. They feel pressure to say something comforting. They fear saying the wrong thing. They might become quiet or leave the room. The partner feels abandoned. The avoidant person feels overwhelmed. Underneath, the avoidant person may care deeply. They just do not have the learned script for comfort, because comfort was not modeled in their family. They may also associate tears with conflict or shame. Their withdrawal is a way to protect themselves from those feelings. Healing difficulty expressing feelings begins with lowering the pressure. Many avoidant people believe they must express feelings perfectly or not at all. They might feel that if they speak, they must have complete clarity. In reality, emotional communication can be simple and imperfect. You can say you feel overwhelmed. You can say you are not sure what you feel. You can say you need time. These statements are honest. They also keep connection alive. They tell your partner you are present, even if you are still finding words. It also helps to build emotional vocabulary gradually. This is not about learning fancy words. It is about learning to connect sensations to meaning. You might notice that your chest feels tight and wonder if that is anxiety. You might notice that you feel restless and wonder if that is fear of closeness. You might notice irritation and wonder what softer feeling is underneath. This practice takes time. It is often easier to do when you are alone at first, because you can explore without pressure. Over time, you can begin to share small pieces with a partner. One common situation looks like this in growth. A dismissive, avoidant person says, "I do not have words yet, but I feel something heavy. I care about this, and I want to come back to it." This kind of sentence can change everything. It acknowledges emotion without requiring full disclosure. It reassures the partner without forcing the avoidant person into overwhelm. It also builds trust because it shows the avoidant person is willing to engage. Difficulty expressing feelings is not proof that you lack emotion or that you cannot love deeply. It is often proof that you learn to survive without emotional language and without emotional mirroring. Those skills kept you safe and functioning. Now they may be limiting intimacy. The good news is that emotional expression can be learned. It can be learned through small, consistent steps that build safety and reduce shame. As you learn to express what you feel, even in simple ways, relationships become less confusing. You do not have to rely on withdrawal or anger to communicate. You can speak from your inner world. And when you do, you give both yourself and the people you love a chance to feel closer, steadier, and more real. Avoidance of conflict or shutting down. This section is about avoidance of conflict or shutting down, and why this pattern is so common in dismissive avoidant attachment. Conflict is one of the places where attachment styles become most visible. Conflict brings emotion, uncertainty, and the possibility of disconnection. For someone with a dismissive avoidance style, these elements can feel like danger. Avoiding conflict can feel like keeping the peace. Shutting down can feel like staying in control. The trouble is that peace created by avoidance often comes at the cost of intimacy, and control created by shutdown often comes at the cost of repair. Avoidance of conflict often begins in childhood when conflict felt unsafe or unproductive. If disagreements in your home led to criticism, yelling, sarcasm, or cold silence, you may have learned that conflict has no good ending. You may have learned that speaking up makes things worse. You may have learned that emotions in the room lead to shame. In that environment, the child becomes skilled at preventing conflict. They become agreeable. They become quiet. They learn to read moods and adjust. These skills can help a child survive, and they can become an adult habit that blocks honest connection. Shutting down is often a protective response to emotional intensity. When the conversation becomes emotionally charged, the avoidant person may feel flooded. Flooded can feel like having too much information, too many feelings, and too many demands arriving at once. The person might not have words for what is happening, but they feel an urge to escape. They may go silent, they may stare away, they may stop responding. This shutdown can be misread as punishment. From the avoidant person's side, it is often self-protection. Silence becomes a way to stop the emotional wave. One common situation looks like this. A partner brings up a concern and the conversation becomes heated. The dismissive avoidant person starts to feel overwhelmed. They might feel their heart rate increase. They might feel pressure in their chest. They might feel the urge to defend themselves. Then suddenly they feel blank. Their mind goes empty. They stop talking. The partner feels abandoned and may become more upset. The avoidant person feels trapped and may withdraw further. Underneath, the avoidant person is not always refusing. They are often overloaded. Avoidance of conflict can also come from a belief that conflict is pointless. Many dismissive avoidant people learned that emotional conversations did not lead to comfort or understanding. They may believe talking does not help. They may believe feelings are messy and unresolvable. They may prefer to solve problems privately and move on. This belief can protect against vulnerability. If you convince yourself conflict is pointless, you never have to risk being seen in your hurt. You never have to risk being wrong. You never have to risk being judged. The cost is that the relationship does not get the chance to deepen through repair. Shutting down can also be tied to shame. If you fear being criticized, you may shut down to avoid saying something that reveals weakness. You may feel that your partner's complaints mean you are failing. If you have an inner voice that is harsh, conflict can activate that voice. You might feel embarrassed, inadequate, or angry at yourself. Instead of staying present with those feelings, you may withdraw. Withdrawal protects you from shame, but it leaves the partner alone with the issue. Over time, the partner may feel they cannot reach you, which creates more conflict, not less. One common situation looks like this. A partner says, "When you go quiet, I feel alone." And the avoidant person hears, "You are a bad partner." The avoidant person feels defensive and shuts down. The partner becomes more emotional, trying to get a response. The avoidant person feels more ashamed and withdraws further. Both people are now stuck in a cycle. The partner is trying to create connection through talking. The avoidant person is trying to create safety through silence. Without understanding, the cycle can become a steady source of pain. Avoidance of conflict can also be reinforced by family culture. In some families, problems are never discussed. People act as if everything is fine. They move on without repair. Children learn that bringing up issues creates tension, so they learn not to. They learn to swallow discomfort and keep the surface calm. As adults, they may replicate this pattern. They may prefer to pretend nothing is wrong. They may be polite while carrying resentment. They may avoid difficult conversations until they can no longer avoid them, and then the conflict comes out as sudden distance or a sudden breakup. The relationship ends without ever having a real chance to heal. Shutting down can also come from a fear of being controlled. Many dismissive avoidants are sensitive to pressure. In conflict, a partner may ask for change. They may ask for reassurance. They may ask for more time together. Even if the request is reasonable, the avoidant person may hear it as a demand. Demands trigger the fear of losing autonomy. Shutdown is a way to resist without fighting. Silence becomes a boundary. It says, "You cannot pull me into this." The cost is that the partner feels locked out. One common situation looks like this. A partner says, "We need to talk about us," and the avoidant person feels dread. The phrase can feel like the beginning of a long emotional discussion with unclear ending. The avoidant person might become busy. They might delay the conversation. They might say they are tired. They might agree to talk and then offer very little. This avoidance is not always intentional. The person's body is bracing for overwhelm. Avoidance is the body trying to keep the person safe. Avoidance of conflict and shutting down can create a sense of emotional unpredictability in the relationship. The partner may not know when they can talk about something difficult. They may feel they have to choose their words carefully. They may feel they cannot bring up their needs. They may start walking on eggshells. The avoidant person may feel pressured by this tension, and the pressure can lead to more withdrawal. Both people feel less safe, and the relationship becomes less open. Healing involves learning that conflict is not automatically danger. Conflict can be a doorway to deeper trust when it is handled with respect. For avoidant people, this often means learning to regulate overwhelm without disappearing. You might need to learn to take breaks in a way that stays connected. You might need to learn to name what is happening in your body. You might need to learn to slow the conversation down. These are practical skills. They help you stay present without being flooded. One common situation looks like this in growth. A dismissive avoidant person feels overwhelmed and says, "I want to talk, but I am getting flooded. Can we take a short break and come back in an hour?" This sentence does several important things. It acknowledges the partner's need for repair. It honors the avoidant person's need for regulation. It prevents abandonment by promising return. Over time, practicing this builds trust. The partner learns that space does not mean the conversation will never happen. The avoidant person learns that conflict can be managed without shutdown. It also helps to shift the meaning of conflict from threat to teamwork. When you see conflict as something you solve together, it feels less like attack. For dismissive, avoidant people, this shift can reduce defensiveness. Instead of hearing, "You are wrong," you begin to hear, "We are hurting, and we want to feel close again." This requires both partners to communicate with care, but the avoidant person can contribute by staying engaged and by sharing their internal experience rather than disappearing. Avoidance of conflict and shutting down serve as protections. They protect against overwhelm, shame, and fear of losing autonomy. They also prevent the very thing many avoidant people want, which is a steady relationship where closeness feels safe. When you begin to understand this pattern, you can start to change it. You do not have to become someone who loves conflict. You simply need to become someone who can stay present long enough for repair. When repair becomes possible, intimacy becomes less threatening. You learn that closeness can survive hard moments, and that learning is one of the most healing experiences an avoidant person can have. Charm without depth. This section is about charm without depth and why it can be a confusing trait in dismissive avoidant attachment. Charm is often seen as a positive quality. It can mean you are socially skilled, likable, and easy to be around. Many dismissive avoidant people are charming, especially early in relationships. They may be attentive, funny, and engaging. They may make people feel special. The confusion comes when that charm does not turn into deeper emotional intimacy over time. A partner may feel captivated in the beginning and lonely later. The avoidant person may feel pressured as the relationship deepens. Understanding this dynamic helps you see that charm is not always manipulation. Sometimes it is a way of connecting that feels safe because it keeps vulnerability at a manageable distance. Charm can be a form of connection that does not require exposure. When you are charming, you can create warmth without revealing your inner world. You can be present without being vulnerable. You can share stories, jokes, and opinions without sharing your fears, needs, or tenderness. For someone who has learned that vulnerability is risky, charm is a perfect bridge. It gives you closeness without the danger of being emotionally seen. It allows you to feel connected while still being in control. Charm often develops in childhood as a way to stay safe in the family system. A child might learn that being pleasant reduces criticism. They might learn that humor softens tension. They might learn that being impressive earns attention. In emotionally cold or critical homes, charm can be a strategy for maintaining connection without asking for emotional care. The child becomes good at reading the room and offering what the room wants. Later, that skill becomes adult charm, and the adult may not recognize it as a strategy. It may feel like their natural personality. One common situation looks like this. A dismissive avoidant person meets someone new and feels relaxed because the relationship is light. They can be charming without fear because nothing has been demanded yet. They can be playful, they can be attentive, they can flirt. The other person feels drawn in. As the relationship grows, the partner begins to want deeper emotional sharing. They want to know the avoidant person's inner life. They want reassurance, commitment, and emotional presence. The avoidant person begins to feel pressure. Their charm may decrease. They may become more distant. The partner feels confused because the early experience felt so close. Charm without depth can create a mismatch in expectations. The partner may assume charm means emotional availability. They may believe that if someone can be that warm and attentive, they will also be able to be emotionally open. When the avoidant person struggles to express feelings later, the partner may feel misled. The avoidant person may feel misunderstood. Underneath, the avoidant person may have been genuine in their charm. They may have truly enjoyed the connection. The issue is that charm does not require the kind of vulnerability that depth requires. And depth is where the avoidant person's fears are activated. Charm can also become a substitute for repair. When conflict happens, some dismissive avoidant people use charm to smooth things over without addressing the deeper issue. They might make a joke. They might be extra pleasant. They might offer a nice gesture. The partner may appreciate the gesture and still feel unresolved. The avoidant person may believe the problem is solved because the surface feels calm again. This pattern often comes from a home where emotional repair was not practiced. The person learned that calm is the goal, not understanding. Charm is used to restore calm. The cost is that deeper intimacy does not grow because intimacy grows through honest repair. One common situation looks like this. A couple has a disagreement and the dismissive avoidant person withdraws. The next day they act cheerful and affectionate, as if nothing happened. The partner feels confused because they want to talk and reconnect emotionally. The avoidant person may feel irritated by the request because they already restored peace through charm. Underneath, the avoidant person may fear that talking will lead to shame or overwhelm. Charm allows them to avoid that fear while still maintaining the relationship on the surface. Charm without depth can also protect against rejection. If you keep relationships at the level of charm, you can be liked by many people without risking being truly known. Being truly known is riskier because it allows the other person to see your flaws and your needs. If you have a history of being judged for feelings, you may prefer being liked for your pleasantness. That kind of liking feels safer. The cost is that it can leave you feeling unseen. You may be surrounded by people who enjoy you, yet you may feel alone because nobody touches your deeper self. This is one reason some dismissive avoidant people have many social connections but few deeply intimate ones. They can be the person everyone enjoys at a party. They can be admired at work. They can have relationships that look good from the outside. Still, when it comes to deep emotional closeness, they may feel uneasy. They may avoid it or delay it. They may not know how to move from charm to vulnerability. They may also fear that if they stop being charming, they will be rejected because they have learned that the charming self is the acceptable self. One common situation looks like this in dating. The dismissive avoidant person may be very attentive early on, then become less responsive when the other person expresses stronger feelings. They might say they are busy. They might slow down communication. They might become less affectionate. The other person may chase, seeking the early warmth. The avoidant person may feel pressured and withdraw further. The avoidant person may not be trying to hurt anyone. They may simply feel safer when closeness is light. Charm thrives in lightness. Depth demands vulnerability, and vulnerability triggers defense. Charm without depth can also confuse the avoidant person themselves. They may enjoy being liked. They may enjoy the ease of connection. They may not understand why relationships start to feel suffocating later. They may believe the partner changes or becomes demanding. Sometimes partners do become more demanding. Often they are simply seeking depth. The avoidant person may not know how to offer depth without feeling exposed. They may then feel trapped between wanting connection and fearing intimacy. Charm becomes the compromise. It allows connection without depth, but the craving for depth remains under the surface. Healing involves learning to bring small pieces of depth into connection without overwhelming yourself. Depth does not require dramatic confessions. It can begin with small honesty. It can begin with saying you were hurt. It can begin with admitting you are nervous. It can begin with naming that you care. These statements are vulnerable, but they are manageable. Over time, they build the bridge from charm to intimacy. One common situation looks like this in growth. A dismissive avoidant person notices they are using humor to avoid a tender topic. Instead of making another joke, they pause and say, "I am joking because this feels uncomfortable for me." This is depth. It reveals inner experience. It also keeps the tone gentle. The partner feels included rather than shut out. The avoidant person remains dignified because they are honest rather than defensive. This kind of moment slowly changes the relationship from surface connection to real connection. Charm is not a bad trait. It can be a gift. The goal is not to remove charm. The goal is to add depth so that charm becomes part of intimacy rather than a replacement for it. When charm is paired with vulnerability, it becomes even more meaningful. It becomes a way of offering warmth while also offering truth. For dismissive, avoidant people, learning to add depth is often the work of learning that being known is not the same as being judged. When you learn that, you can let someone closer without losing yourself, and relationships can become not only pleasant but also deeply nourishing. Inconsistency and closeness. This section is about inconsistency and closeness, and why it is such a confusing and painful part of dismissive avoidant attachment. Inconsistency and closeness is the experience of moving toward someone and then pulling away, sometimes without understanding why. A dismissive avoidant person may be warm, present and affectionate one day and distant the next. Their partner may feel as if the relationship is always shifting. The avoidant person may feel misunderstood because they may genuinely care and still feel the need to create distance. Understanding this pattern matters because inconsistency is rarely about games. It is usually about the internal tug-of-war between longing for connection and fear of vulnerability. For many dismissive avoidants, closeness feels good in the moment and scary afterward. They may enjoy tenderness, affection, and shared time. They may feel calm and connected when the closeness is light and freely chosen. The fear often arrives when closeness starts to imply something more, such as emotional dependence, expectation, or commitment. The body can interpret deeper closeness as a loss of autonomy. When autonomy feels like safety, anything that threatens autonomy triggers defense. The defense shows up as distance, which looks like inconsistency. One common situation looks like this. A dismissive avoidant person has a wonderful date or a deeply connected conversation. They go home feeling warm. The next morning they feel restless. They might start thinking about what the partner wants. They might worry that the closeness means they will now be expected to be available more often. They might worry that they will not be able to meet those expectations. They may feel pressure, even if nobody has said anything. That pressure triggers distance. They might text less, become busy, or act emotionally flat. The partner feels a sudden drop in closeness and begins to wonder what happened. Inconsistency can also happen because dismissive avoidants often need time alone to regulate. When they are with someone for long periods, especially when emotions are involved, they may feel overstimulated. They may feel as if they cannot hear themselves think. They might not recognize this as overstimulation. They may simply feel irritated or tired. Taking space helps them return to themselves. The problem is that many avoidant people do not communicate this clearly. They take space without explaining. Their partner then experiences the space as rejection. The avoidant person experiences it as relief. This creates a pattern where closeness feels unstable. Inconsistency in closeness can also be driven by shame. When a dismissive avoidant person feels close, their longing becomes more visible. They may feel love, tenderness, and even dependence. Then shame rises. Shame says that needing is weak. Shame says that being attached is dangerous. The person may then pull away to regain dignity. They may convince themselves the relationship is not that important. They may focus on flaws. They may become critical. This shift can be sudden, which makes it confusing. Underneath, the person is not losing love. They are protecting themselves from the vulnerability of loving. One common situation looks like this in long-term relationships. The avoidant person feels close during everyday routines, but becomes distant when the partner asks for reassurance. The partner might say, "Do you still want this?" And the avoidant person might respond with annoyance or silence. The partner feels hurt and asks again later. The avoidant person feels pressured and withdraws. The partner feels insecure. The avoidant person then feels suffocated by the insecurity. The cycle continues. The inconsistency is not random. It is often a reaction to perceived demands for emotional engagement. Another cause of inconsistency is the difference between physical closeness and emotional closeness. Some dismissive avoidants are comfortable with physical intimacy and less comfortable with emotional intimacy. They may enjoy sex, cuddling, and shared experiences. They may struggle with emotional conversations, reassurance, and the sharing of inner life. A partner may interpret physical intimacy as a sign of emotional closeness, then feel confused when the avoidant person withdraws emotionally afterward. The avoidant person may not understand why the partner expects emotional openness. They may feel that physical closeness should be enough. This mismatch can create a rhythm where closeness feels intense and then disappears. Inconsistency can also be connected to the avoidant person's internal processing time. Many dismissive avoidants need longer to recognize what they feel. They may feel connected in the moment and later realize they felt overwhelmed. They may agree to something in the moment and later feel trapped by it. Because their feelings show up later, their behavior can change later, and the partner experiences the change as unpredictability. The avoidant person might say yes and then pull back. They might seem interested and then go quiet. These shifts can feel unfair to the partner, and they can feel confusing to the avoidant person too. One common situation looks like this. The partner suggests a future plan, such as a trip or a holiday with family. The avoidant person agrees, wanting to be kind and wanting to avoid conflict. Later, they feel anxious about the commitment. They might start finding reasons why the plan is not a good idea. They might become distant. The partner feels rejected. The avoidant person feels trapped. Underneath, the avoidant person's nervous system is reacting to the idea of obligation. Inconsistency arises because the initial agreement was made before the deeper reaction arrived. Inconsistency in closeness also tends to trigger insecurity in partners, which then creates more pressure. When a partner never knows where they stand, they naturally seek clarity. They ask questions. They look for reassurance. They may become more emotionally expressive. For a dismissive avoidant person, this can feel like being chased. Being chased triggers the fear of being controlled. The avoidant person pulls away more. The partner becomes more anxious. The cycle intensifies. In this cycle, the avoidant person's inconsistency creates the partner's pursuit, and the partner's pursuit creates more avoidance. Both people end up feeling unsafe. This is why it is so important not to treat inconsistency as a simple character flaw. It is often a pattern that serves a purpose. The avoidant person moves toward closeness because they crave connection. They move away because connection activates fear. Both moves are attempts to regulate. The goal of healing is not to force the avoidant person into constant closeness. The goal is to create a steadier rhythm where space is allowed and closeness is reliable. Reliability does not mean no space. It means the partner can trust that space does not mean abandonment. Healing inconsistency often begins with communication about space. Many dismissive avoidants need alone time, but they do not know how to request it without sounding rejecting. They may disappear instead. Learning to say, "I need some time to reset, and I care about you," can change the entire pattern. It allows the avoidant person to take space without creating panic. It allows the partner to relax because they know what is happening. The avoidant person feels less trapped, and the partner feels less abandoned. One common situation looks like this in growth. After a deeply connected evening, the avoidant person notices the urge to withdraw. Instead of going silent, they say, "I loved last night, and I also feel a little overwhelmed today. I need some quiet time, and I will check in later." This sentence honors both truths. It honors the closeness and the need for space. It also prevents the partner from filling the silence with fear. Over time, this kind of honesty turns inconsistency into a more predictable rhythm. It also helps to work with the fear underneath the inconsistency. If closeness triggers fear of obligation, the avoidant person can learn to separate closeness from endless responsibility. They can learn that being close does not mean losing autonomy. If closeness triggers fear of being judged, the avoidant person can learn that vulnerability can be met with respect. These lessons are learned through repeated experiences, not through willpower. Each time the avoidant person stays present and survives the discomfort, the fear loses a little strength. Inconsistency in closeness is one of the traits that confuses others because it sends mixed signals. It can make partners doubt themselves and doubt the relationship. It can make the avoidant person feel guilty and misunderstood. When you see the pattern clearly, you can stop treating it as random. You can treat it as a protective rhythm that can be reshaped. The goal is steadiness, not constant intimacy. Steadiness means your partner can trust you will return. It means you can take space without disappearing. It means closeness is something you can stay with rather than something you flee. With patience and practice, inconsistency can soften into a more stable bond where both closeness and autonomy have room to exist. The push-pull paradox. This section is about the push-pull paradox, which is one of the most painful and misunderstood patterns in dismissive avoidant attachment. The push-pull paradox is the experience of wanting closeness and then pulling away from it, sometimes repeatedly. It can feel like a contradiction that makes no sense. The dismissive avoidant person may wonder why they cannot simply enjoy love. Their partner may wonder why closeness is met with distance. Both people can feel exhausted. The paradox is not a sign that the avoidant person is playing games. It is often a sign that two strong needs are colliding inside the same person, the need for connection and the need for safety through independence. The push begins with longing. Even dismissive avoidants long for closeness. They may not talk about it, but they often feel it as a desire for companionship, affection, and being understood. When they feel lonely, or when they feel safe with a partner, they may move toward connection. They might initiate contact. They might be affectionate. They might open up more than usual. These moments can be genuine and deeply felt. They are not fake. They are the part of the avoidant person that wants love. The pull begins when closeness starts to activate fear. The fear is often not obvious. It may not feel like fear at all. It may feel like irritation, boredom, or the sense that the relationship is becoming too much. Still, underneath, the fear is often about losing autonomy, being obligated, being judged, or being emotionally overwhelmed. When the fear rises, the avoidant person pulls back to restore a sense of control. The pull can look like distance, silence, criticism, or distraction. The partner feels the shift and often responds with pursuit, which can intensify the avoidant person's fear. Then, the pull becomes stronger. One common situation looks like this. A dismissive avoidant person feels lonely and reaches out. The couple has a warm weekend. They feel close. The partner feels hopeful and begins to talk about future plans. The avoidant person feels pressure. They start to feel trapped. They withdraw. The partner feels hurt and asks what is wrong. The avoidant person feels more pressure and withdraws further. The partner may then become anxious, trying to restore the closeness that just existed. The avoidant person feels chased and wants even more distance. The cycle repeats. Each person's response makes sense from their perspective, and the paradox grows stronger. The push-pull paradox can also show up inside a single moment. The avoidant person might be sitting close to their partner and feel a wave of tenderness, and then feel a wave of discomfort right afterward. They might want to say something loving and then stop themselves. They might want to be held and then feel tense when the holding happens. This is not because they do not know what they want. It is because the thing they want, closeness, is linked to old pain. The body can experience closeness as both relief and threat. The mind then tries to solve the conflict by switching between closeness and distance. The paradox is often rooted in childhood experience. If closeness in childhood was emotionally thin or unpredictable, the child may have learned to crave warmth and also to distrust it. If closeness was linked to criticism, the child may have learned that being seen leads to shame. If closeness was linked to obligation, the child may have learned that love costs freedom. Those lessons do not disappear. They become the adult's internal operating system. The adult wants intimacy, but intimacy activates the old lesson, and the lesson triggers defense. For dismissive avoidance, the defense often looks like deactivating. Deactivating is the way the avoidant person turns down their attachment needs. They may focus on a partner's flaws. They may convince themselves the partner is too needy. They may tell themselves the relationship is not right. They may fantasize about being alone. These thoughts can feel like clarity. They can feel like the truth. Often they are part of the pull. They reduce closeness by making closeness seem undesirable. The avoidant person may not realize that the deactivating thoughts are a response to fear. They may believe they are simply being realistic. One common situation looks like this after a milestone. The relationship becomes more serious, perhaps through meeting families, moving in, or talking about commitment. The avoidant person begins to feel distant. They may feel restless and critical. They may suddenly notice every flaw. The partner may feel blindsided because things seemed good. The avoidant person may feel confused because they do care. Underneath the milestone increased intimacy, and increased intimacy activated fear. The avoidant person then pulled back to restore safety. The push-pull paradox is especially painful because it can create a sense of instability. The partner never knows what to expect. They may feel they have to earn closeness. They may feel they are always trying to prove they are safe. The avoidant person may feel guilty for hurting the partner and resentful of the partner's needs at the same time. The guilt and resentment can intensify the paradox. Guilt can lead to pushing closer as an attempt to make things right. Resentment can lead to pulling away as an attempt to reclaim autonomy. The relationship becomes a dance between repair and retreat. This paradox can also affect the avoidant person's self-respect. Many dismissive avoidants want to see themselves as steady and rational. When they find themselves pushing and pulling, they may feel ashamed. They may tell themselves they are not good at relationships. They may decide it is better to avoid commitment entirely. This is understandable, but it can also be a loss. Avoidant people often have a deep capacity for loyalty and care. The paradox does not mean they cannot love. It means they have to learn how to regulate closeness without turning it into a threat. Healing the push-pull paradox begins with recognizing the pattern. The pattern often becomes visible when you notice what happens after closeness. If you tend to withdraw after intimacy, that is a clue. If you tend to become critical after commitment steps, that is a clue. If you tend to feel irritated when a partner expresses need, that is a clue. These reactions often happen at predictable points in the relationship. When you can see the predictable points, you can prepare for them. Preparation creates choice. It also helps to understand that the push is not wrong and the pull is not wrong. The push is your need for connection. The pull is your need for safety. Both are legitimate. The goal is not to eliminate either. The goal is to create a way for both needs to exist without harming the relationship. That often means learning to take space without disappearing. It also means learning to stay emotionally connected even when you need physical space. The partner can feel safe if they know you will return, and if they feel you still care. One common situation looks like this in growth. A dismissive avoidant person feels the urge to withdraw after a close weekend. Instead of going silent, they say, "I feel close to you, and I also feel overwhelmed. I need a quiet day to reset, and I want to see you tomorrow." This statement honors the push and the pull. It tells the partner the closeness was real, It also sets a boundary that protects the avoidant person's need for space. Over time, this kind of honesty can reduce the intensity of the paradox, because the avoidant person does not have to use distance as a secret shield. For partners, healing also involves not responding to the pull with panic. That is hard, especially if you have an anxious style. Still, when pursuit is intense, it can intensify avoidance. This does not mean you suppress your needs. It means you express them in a way that invites rather than demands. The avoidant person needs to learn to stay present. The partner needs to learn to give space without abandoning themselves. When both people work with the pattern, the cycle can soften. The push-pull paradox is a human story about wanting love and fearing it at the same time. It is not a sign that you are cruel or broken. It is a sign that your heart learned to associate closeness with risk. When you begin to see the paradox clearly, you can stop being confused by it. You can start to respond to it with gentleness and skill. You can create a steadier rhythm where closeness does not have to be followed by disappearance, and where space does not have to mean rejection. With time, the paradox can become less powerful, and love can begin to feel like a place you can stay. How these traits confuse others. This section is about how the traits of dismissive avoidant attachment confuse others, and why that confusion can create so much pain in relationships. People do not only react to what you do, they react to what your behavior seems to mean. Dismissive avoidant traits often send mixed signals, especially to partners who equate love with emotional openness and consistent closeness. The avoidant person may feel they are being reasonable and self-controlled. The partner may feel dismissed, shut out, or emotionally abandoned. Both people can feel misunderstood, and the misunderstanding itself can become the main source of conflict. One reason dismissive avoidant traits confuse others is that avoidant people often appear fine. They may not show distress in obvious ways. They may not ask for comfort. They may continue functioning even when they are hurting. Partners may assume that if someone seems fine, they do not need anything. Then, when the avoidant person suddenly withdraws, the partner feels blindsided. The withdrawal can look like a sudden loss of interest, when it is often a response to overwhelm or fear. The partner is left trying to explain a shift that was never communicated. Another confusing trait is the gap between warmth and distance. Many dismissive avoidant people can be deeply warm at times. They can be affectionate, funny, and present. They can make a partner feel special. Then, as closeness deepens or as emotional needs arise, they can become distant. The partner experiences this as inconsistency. They may feel as if love is being given and then taken away. They may try to get back to the earlier warmth, which can lead to pursuit. The avoidant person experiences the pursuit as pressure and withdraws further. The partner then feels more confused and more hurt. One common situation looks like this. The avoidant person has a loving weekend with their partner and then becomes quiet for several days. The partner wonders if something is wrong. The partner might ask for reassurance. The avoidant person might respond with irritation or silence. The partner then feels rejected. The avoidant person might believe they are simply busy or needing space. The partner experiences the shift as emotional abandonment. The confusion is not because either person is irrational. It is because the meaning of closeness and space is different for each person. Dismissive avoidant traits also confuse others because avoidant people often show love through actions rather than words. They may be responsible, dependable, and helpful. They may solve problems, handle logistics, and show up when there is a crisis. Partners can appreciate these actions and still feel unloved because emotional reassurance is missing. The avoidant person may feel offended by this. They may think their loyalty and effort should be proof of love. The partner may think love should be expressed in feelings and words. Both are responding from their own histories. Without understanding, this mismatch can turn into resentment on both sides. Another confusing trait is emotional minimization. Dismissive avoidants often downplay problems. They may say something is not a big deal. They may treat feelings as overreactions. They may move quickly towards solutions. Partners often interpret minimization as invalidation. They feel that their inner world is being dismissed. The avoidant person may not intend to dismiss. They may be trying to reduce intensity and restore calm because calm feels safe. Still, the partner experiences the calm as emotional absence. The avoidant person's attempt to soothe themselves can make the partner feel more distressed, which increases intensity, which then makes the avoidant person minimize even more. Confusion grows because each person believes they are doing what will help. One common situation looks like this in conflict. A partner says they feel hurt, and the avoidant person responds by explaining why the issue is not serious. The partner feels unheard and becomes more emotional. The avoidant person feels overwhelmed and withdraws. The partner feels abandoned. The avoidant person feels attacked. Both people are now reacting to the pattern rather than to the original issue. The confusion comes from the avoidant person's belief that reducing emotion will solve the problem, while the partner's belief is that emotional connection is what solves the problem. Dismissive avoidants also confuse others because they often need time to process, but they do not always communicate that need. They may go quiet and take space. Partners may interpret this as punishment or avoidance. The avoidant person may be trying to sort out their feelings. They might not have words yet. They might not know what they need. The silence can be functional for them. For the partner, silence can be terrifying. It feels like disconnection. The partner may then push for conversation, which makes the avoidant person feel more pressured. The cycle intensifies and confusion becomes conflict. Another confusing trait is discomfort with vulnerability. Many partners want to feel emotionally close by sharing fears and needs. When the avoidant person responds with blankness, humor, or topic changes, partners can feel rejected. They may think the avoidant person is emotionally immature or unwilling to invest. The avoidant person may feel judged and retreat. Underneath, the avoidant person may be afraid of being exposed, afraid of being inadequate, or simply unsure how to express what they feel. Partners often interpret the behavior as choice, when it is often a learned reflex. Dismissive avoidance can also confuse others by seeming emotionally unaffected by major events. After a fight, they may act as if everything is fine. After a breakup, they may seem calm. After a stressful period, they may not talk about it. Partners and friends may assume the avoidant person does not care. In reality, many avoidant people care deeply, but they handle emotion privately. They may also be numb in the moment and feel emotion later. The timing difference can confuse others. A partner may want comfort now, while the avoidant person is not yet connected to the emotion. Later, when the avoidant person feels it, the partner may already be exhausted or guarded. One common situation looks like this after a rupture. The partner wants a conversation to repair. The avoidant person wants to move on. The partner interprets moving on as denial. The avoidant person interprets the conversation as pressure. Both want peace, but they are trying to get there through different doors. The confusion is about what repair looks like. For many avoidant people, repair is returning to normal. For many partners, repair is emotional engagement. When these definitions clash, both people feel unseen. The traits also confuse others because avoidant people can be very committed in some ways and very distant in others. They might be loyal for years and still avoid emotional intimacy. They might be responsible and still feel uncomfortable saying "I love you" or talking about the future. Partners may struggle to understand how someone can be so present in practical life and so absent in emotional life. The avoidant person may struggle to understand why practical devotion is not enough. Without a shared framework, each person can feel misunderstood and resentful. Understanding how these traits confuse others is not meant to shame the avoidant person. It is meant to create empathy for the impact. If you are dismissive avoidant, you may not realize how your silence feels to a partner. You may not realize how your minimization feels like dismissal. You may not realize how your need for space can be interpreted as abandonment. If you love someone dismissive avoidant, you may not realize how your pursuit can feel like control, or how your emotional urgency can feel overwhelming. When both people understand the confusion, they can begin to translate each other's behavior more accurately. One common step toward reducing confusion is clear communication about space and care. The avoidant person can learn to say they need time without disappearing, and to reassure their partner that they will return. The partner can learn to express needs without making them sound like accusations. These changes do not require anyone to become a different person. They require both people to respect each other's nervous systems and histories. How these traits confuse others is a story about mismatched emotional languages. Avoidant behaviors often mean self-protection, while partners often interpret them as lack of love. Partners often express need as closeness seeking, while avoidant people interpret it as pressure. When you can see these misinterpretations, you can soften them. You can begin to respond to what is actually happening, not to what you fear it means. This is how relationships become safer. It is how avoidant people learn that closeness does not have to be a trap. And it is how partners learn that distance is not always rejection. With understanding and practice, confusion can be replaced by clarity, and the relationship can become steadier for both people.